Admissions in higher ed is stuck. Outdated tools and rigid processes slow institutions down, making it harder to truly connect with today's students. But Brittany at the College of Albemarle shows that there's a better way.
At College of the Albemarle, we're always looking for new ways to better serve our students. Let's face it, though, life doesn't always fit into a 9 to 5 schedule. That's why we've been so excited about the AI tools we get to use through our CRM, Element 451. This makes connecting to COA easier than ever. We're working on Bolt AI Assistance, Bolt Discovery, and these are tools designed to give students access to COA resources and information anytime, day or night. Got a question about admissions? Need help exploring programs? Looking for resources? These tools are like having COA staff at your fingertips, ready to help whenever it's convenient for you.
Your prospective students get the information they need when they need it, and your team saves time. Visit element451.com to see how AI can help you simplify your admissions process to stay focused on what really matters, your students. Today's use case focuses on using AI to streamline your social media content calendar. Many higher ed marketers struggle with maintaining consistent social media presence across multiple channels while staying on brand and engaging different audience segments. Using ChatGPT or Claude, you can create a month's worth of social media content in a fraction of the time it would typically take. The key is to provide the AI with your brand voice guidelines, key messages, important dates and events, and target audience information. Then ask it to generate post ideas for different platforms, complete with appropriate hashtags and engagement prompts. The prompt template in the show notes will help you generate varied content types from student spotlights to campus events and academic achievements to alumni success stories while maintaining your institution's voice and meeting platform-specific requirements. And as always, have your social media professionals edit, adjust, and validate any content before it gets posted. In this episode, we're talking with Dave Hunt, Executive Creative Director at Old Dominion University. Dave is a talented, creative, and versatile marketer, and I'm excited for this conversation. Let's jump right in. Welcome to AI for You, the go-to podcast for higher ed professionals looking to integrate AI into their daily work. I'm your host, Brian Piper, the Director of Content Strategy and Assessment at the University of Rochester. Join me every other Thursday for practical uses of AI within higher education communications, marketing, and student engagement. We'll focus on ways to quickly integrate AI into your teams to increase your efficiency and effectiveness and help you optimize your workflows and processes. I'll interview experts and feature relevant use cases with the goal that every episode gives you at least one thing you can take away and start leveraging in your job today. AI for You is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Well, Dave, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Brian.
So I want to start right off by asking you a little bit about how you're integrating AI into ODU outside of the academic space.
Sure. So within ODU, I work in our Division of Digital Transformation and Technology, and that houses our university's IT and digital learning. And so then within that, I serve as Executive Creative Director in our Strategic Enrollment Management area. And that includes admissions, advising, and marketing. So that's a long answer to say I'm a marketer, but that's kind of how we're housed and what our structure is like. And so then in my shop, I have designers, video, content marketing, social media, digital marketing, and then our project management that keeps the trains running and helps us work with the university procurement and all those kinds of things. So on my team, AI is starting to get baked into Monday.com, our project management system. I think that's going to ultimately help speed up things like automating, how really large projects kick off, all the manual things that you have to do when you're dealing with really collaborative and cumbersome tasks and projects. And then our design and video team has been really quick to embrace AI tools in the Adobe Creative Suite and Canva. And as someone who's had dedicated design roles at points during my career, some of those tools sound, simple and obvious, like using generative fill to convincingly extend a background from a vertical photo to make it usable in a wide space, or click a button and remove a background on an image. But I'll tell you, I'm telling on myself, I'm old enough that I've lost probably weeks of my work life to doing things like that manually. So I think we're already not thinking about those things really as being AI tools, even though that's what is driving them, because there's so little controversy in using those tools. But they take hours off of a designer's workload and allow you to not have to dip it down into that production work and spend hours on something you might not even use at the end. So those things are really transformative. And then, of course, the gorilla in the room is Chat GPT. Across my full team and extending to some of our other staff, we have Chat GPT Teams accounts, which is where I've built all of our custom GPTs.
So it sounds like you wear a lot of different hats. What has the adoption been like within the team? Because I know within a lot of the institutions I talk to, you have different camps of people, some people who are very enthusiastic, some people who are a little bit more leery about using the technology. What's it been like at ODU?
Um, I would say that it's very supportive. It's from leadership on down. And so that's allowed me to be very supportive. I think that it's hard to deny a tool that saves you hours on a task. So without even having to get into things that start to broach ethical issues or things like that, you can make a pretty strong case for, do you want to spend 3 hours outlining this person, or do you want to click a button and have it done in 5 seconds or less?
Right.
So I think, and that's been kind of a good general sort of path to adoption when I tell people, how to convince your teams, like start with the obvious, simple things that can save people, minutes, hours, days. It's funny, like we did have a staff person who started during the interview. I asked about AI, and they were pretty pessimistic about it, and then they joked after the fact, after we still hired them, that they gave the wrong answer. And I said, no, you gave an answer that indicated that right now you were skeptical, but you were open. And that's really, I just want people who are open. I've been really fortunate. Like my team has been really proactive in embracing these tools. We're all discovering, we're all learning. I try to be supportive of that from the top down to them, but also that filters back up there. I'm learning from them, they're learning from each other. So it's been really collaborative. But also, like we spoke at AMA this year, you do kind of the informal show of hands in the room for like what's happening with AI adoption. And in the pre-conference workshop that I did with my wife Jamie and Bart Kaler, we had that was dedicated to people who really wanted to learn how to use generative AI for marketing. And so we had, a really high adoption rate of people who were using these tools, a pretty good amount of people who were using custom GPTs. I think you were one of the people in the room who kept their hand raised for every question we asked about, people who are using these tools. But there's definitely a tapering off as you go, and you get in deeper into what the tools can do and what people are using. And then just last week, Jamie and I were speaking at a College Communicators Association conference hosted at ODU. And that room had about 100 people in it with high general adoption, but we got down to like who's using and building custom GPTs, and only one hand was up. So there are still people who are those change resistors in the room. We joke about the person who's got their arms folded across their body in the back of the room. And it feels nice when you get to the end of a session and somebody comes up and tells you that, you changed their mind or whatever. But it's easy as people who are thinking about this, listening to podcasts about this, talking to people about this, that it feels like we're no longer in the early adoption phase. But, this is like 2 years into the internet revolution, or, the computer revolution, or those kinds of things. Like things are still moving fast and the dust is not remotely settled. So there's too much to do to not.
Yeah.
You have to embrace it if you're going to be successful at this stage.
And I think more people are getting on that train. But like you said, it's easy for us to forget there are so many people who just haven't had the exposure, haven't had any experience, haven't really been put in a position where they have to make a choice whether or not to use the technology. Now, you had
Yeah.
mentioned that you're doing some integration into Monday.com. Are you using the AI within the tool, or are you like doing something with Make or Zapier or something?
For Monday.com, we're just looking at what Monday is putting into it, which is largely about, again, like kind of like kicking off those initial, like immediate tasks that you need to create for every job. And, like that's still, it's kind of crazy to think like in, early 2025, some of these things are still manual. I'm sure, in another year or two, people are going to look back and not believe that there were things that we were doing the way that we're doing them today. um, but yeah, no, we haven't done anything with Zapier or Make or anything like that in there yet.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna see more and more people start getting exposure to these tools, or exposure to AI because it's going to be integrated into all the tools that we're using. And you mentioned Photoshop. I mean, the hours of time, we've spent cropping things out of the background or,
Yes. Yes.
clearing out images from their background. It's just staggering the amount of time that we're saving with that. So
It really
you
is.
mentioned you mentioned speaking, you mentioned, talking, you talk a lot with people in, higher ed, other institutions. What are you seeing as trends around AI adoption at other places and some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that we're exposed to?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'll be honest, like I've got a little soapbox that I can get on about this, but I'm not gonna do that today, Brian. But like, there's a technology, there's a security, there's an ethics pushback on these things sometimes. I think procurement offices, it gets really practical and in the weeds on some of these things, but just OpenAI is not going to change its terms of service for you if you're at a public institution that would like to do some redlining on how OpenAI runs things. Even some of those kinds of things. Like I feel like we're getting past the point of like people who want these things can build and communicate a use case for why they want these tools. I think we've been fortunate that we've had those procurement and IT areas and staff in those areas that have helped us get through some of those challenges that particularly public state institutions are facing when it comes to just being able to enter into some sort of relationship with paying for these services gets tricky sometimes. So I think that's part of it. I think, again, I mean, everybody talks about how like this really is fundamentally a change management issue more than anything else, right? So
Right.
I really think it's those two things. I think it's the procurement IT side of like the technical, how do we get a contract with this company? How do we pay for this? Following all the bureaucratic stuff that's meant to be, safety checks and balances and all those kinds of things that you legitimately need. Um, and then getting people to decide I am going to learn one more thing. I'm going to learn the one more thing that's going to revolutionize my job.
Right? Yeah. Well, and I think, higher ed faces kind of more challenges than a lot of other big brands or institutions do, in that we've been doing things for the same way for a long time, across, all areas of higher ed. So I think
Yeah.
that makes it particularly challenging to a lot of people. They're like, I've been doing this for 20 years. Why do suddenly I have to change the way that I do things? Um,
Yes.
but I love the comparisons that a lot of people make to, previous technologies that have come along that have had huge impactful changes on our society and in the way that we work. I continue to liken them to those. I mean, if you have
Yeah.
tools available to make you more efficient and effective at your job, why would you not use those? So,
Right. Right. And I think, when people start to see the practical impact that it can make on your weekly to-do list, that mountain of stuff that you're trying to get done that you can never make it to, or the nice thing, like who in higher ed, there are very few, our marketing offices and is an example in higher ed that are truly staffed to be able to do the amount of personalization that everybody knows we should be doing and we want to do, like those kinds of things. Having a tool that starts to put some of that within reach for people, even if it's just baby steps in small ways, is such a revolution that you're not gonna many people are not going to be able to get to without a revolution that and the kind of revolution that this is bringing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the opportunity to scale our jobs and to save all that time that we're spending doing like repetitive, monotonous,
Yeah.
non-strategic tasks. I think that'll give
Right.
us, and a lot of people I talk to on the show, explain how the time that AI is saving them from doing those sorts of tasks, they turn around and they use that to do more human type of
Hmm.
interactions and work. The technology is moving quickly. The
Hmm.
changes that are happening are happening rapidly. I used to ask people, where they think AI is going to go in the next, 2 to 3 years. I think that's even very difficult to
It's
to
hard.
look
Yeah.
into. So within the next year or two, where do you see AI going, and what impact do you see it having on higher ed?
Yeah, I think I saw a post from Sam Altman from OpenAI, I think in the last week or so, where he was talking about how, AI agents are coming this year. And I think that's legit. I think that's going to happen. And then he talks about the path to not just AI general intelligence, but also super intelligence, where AI, actually outpaces human intelligence. And you quickly get into these philosophical realms that have been the basis of science fiction, I feel like my whole life. Humans aren't very good at wanting to follow the things the smartest humans say, if that means inconvenient truths about changes we don't want to make. And now what do we suddenly do when we have an intelligence smarter than us telling us what to do? And my guess is that we're going to take its restaurant advice, but not maybe its large systemic problems suggestions. So um but I do think AI agents are on the horizon. I think part of Mr. Altman's job is to hype his company, but I think there has been a pretty steady, remarkable path of improvement, even though there's been some fumbles and missteps along the way. And a part of me is impatiently looking at my watch and being like, "Where's GPT-5? I thought I was going to have that today, and I don't." But the other thing I'll tell you, and I'll put this out into the world on your show, Brian. I'm still looking for a silver bullet for digital ad production. It's such an in the weeds thing, but like Canva and Adobe are getting better at this. There's tools out there that are getting close, but I'm dreaming of a tool that generates animated display ads in 10 different sizes and orientations and exports everything out in clean HTML5. And everything I've tested isn't quite there. There's gaps. This month I looked at something and it was looking really really good, and the like animations were happening and it was copying stuff over to different aspect ratios, and then the HTML5 files, the fonts were messed up, the animations were screwed up, everything was a disaster. So like people are going to solve these though, right? Like those, whether it's the big macro things like the, here's GPT-5 and general intelligence, or it's the I want to reduce the time now that I'm spending here because 20 years into my career this is driving me nuts still. So it's making it, I stay excited though. Like I know we're going to get there. I know things are going to continue to improve, and we all talk about how this is the worst these tools are ever going to be. So I think there's a lot to be excited about that's available to us today, and then that just makes you even more excited for what's coming down the road.
Think you know ChatGPT? Think again. Unlock advanced features like projects and Canvas at the AI Engage Summit's ChatGPT Secrets session on February 26th. You'll be able to implement what you learn immediately. This free virtual event is a must attend. Register now at enrollify.org/engage. Yeah, absolutely. I tell people all the time, even if all advancement and development in AI stopped right now, there is so much we can do with these tools that we just haven't even thought of. I mean,
Yes.
creativity is really I think our superpower as humans is figuring out different ways to use these tools. And I think there are just so many opportunities. And every time I interview somebody, I hear of different ways that they're using the tools, and it's a light bulb that goes off in my mind. I'm like, of course, why didn't we think of that?
Yeah. Well, and
Um,
I think that also gets to why I'm not particularly concerned about this replacing people's jobs. I mean, sure, when the super intelligence arrives and runs the planet, maybe we have some things to fear, but like right now, it's endless opportunity really is what we're what we're looking at right now. And if you're the kind of person who is watching for that and embracing that, you're not going to work yourself out of a job. You're going to work yourself into possibly a better job or a higher level job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so critical right now to have domain expertise. Like to
Hmm.
as a graphic designer, you're able to put a much better prompt into Photoshop's generative fill than I am as a writer, just
Sure.
because you understand the imagery, the composition, the colors better than someone does. And the same thing with like a photographer going into Midjourney. They're going to
Yep.
get much better output than someone who just goes in there and says, give me a picture of a bear on a tricycle.
Right. Yes. It's great. I still am kind of amazed. Some of those tools, like you can go in and just specifying things like focal lengths and, create an image like you used this lens, and that stuff works. It's just amazing what you can do when like you're saying, like some of those in the weeds, practical, technical, real world, quote unquote things, um, are still making an impact on these tools. So you're right. Like those extra pieces of expertise that you've gained are not going by the wayside. They're going to help you do even more, even better.
Yeah. Yeah, and even on the strategic side, you have to be able to know what data and what, examples to give the prompts. And then you also have to be on the backside when you're looking at the output, you have to be able to judge and understand whether or not that's actual quality output or if it's just, you know, hallucinating and making things
Yes.
up. So
Yes, absolutely. I still every once in a while have a chat where I have to ask Chat GPT, where did you get that from? Like, I think you're maybe making some stuff up and filling some holes. And then, like, quotes, like it loves to manufacture quotes for content. Like,
right.
did somebody actually say that? Well, no. Like, it's like that's like the misbehaving child. Well, no.
Right.
I just thought that it needed that, so I manufactured it. Like, okay, well, can we stick to the real stuff you actually have in front of you? And yeah.
Well, and like you mentioned earlier, this is change management, not just within our organizations, but also within our personal workflows. I mean, I
Yes.
have to think about breaking my work up into the research phase first, where I'll use a Perplexity or a ChatGPT search so that it will cite all the sources that I can go validate. And then like the brainstorming and the insights section where I can use whatever tool I want. And I don't really care if it hallucinates because I just want it to be creative.
Right. Yeah.
So it's really figuring out what tools to use in what position of the workflow. So
Yeah. And then still keeping that human judgment in play.
right, right. Well, and
Yeah.
and looking for, okay, now, I've got the framework. Now when do I bring in the storytelling and the
Yep.
humanity and the emotional side of
Yeah.
it, because it can't really do that yet.
Yeah.
So within your personal workflows, where do you get the most benefit from using these different tools?
Yeah. I, for me, it really is Chat GPT. And I know, it can be easy to fall into the trap of the false equivalency of AI is Chat GPT. Of course, we've talked about other tools here and other direct competitions with LLMs for Chat GPT, but Chat GPT is the single most important tool for me. I love my job, the people that I work with, and in so many ways, this is a culmination of the dedicated things I've done in my career that I'm now supervising and mentoring in others. But ChatGPT is the secret sauce as a manager that is saving my life. And I'll say that our brand custom GPT is really where it's at. I am probably 80% of what I'm doing for work with AI with ChatGPT is in our brand GPT. And of course, I'm doing the obvious marketing things, brainstorming copy for ads and landing pages and flyers and stuff like that. But for me, it's also the leadership tasks that I have to do. And um, it's interesting. Like I would not have thought of that. Like you actually are one of the reasons why we have a brand GPT. I heard you talking about these things, and we were in the midst of a brand project about a year ago where we were still building all of that out. And I was waiting for the day when we got all of the messaging so I could throw that into a custom GPT and get going. Um, but like I have a fully remote team. In addition to those areas, they're in 5 states. 3 of them are in different time zones, and the majority of them were hired since March of last year. So we had a strange alignment of stars this fall, and suddenly they were all able to come to campus for the first time. And so we decided like we need a retreat, and we're going to see a football game together, and it's going to be this big deal. And at my core, I'm an introvert. I've planned a few events in my life. I am not an event planner. It makes my thinking about that work makes my eyes twitch. Like I immediately put a lot of pressure on myself to turn this into this day that was going to be, meaningful and special, and you know, uh, just really take advantage of us all finally being in the same space together. And I had friends and colleagues who've done retreats, and I could talk to them, of course. But then during evenings and weekends, and between meetings, I was running into our brand GPT and brainstorming session ideas and plans for the day. And then how do we turn that into an actual schedule? And then telling Chat GPT we're humans who need bathroom breaks. I need don't just schedule like 8 hours of back to back stuff and all this kind of stuff. But it led to a really successful day that was truly, one of the best work days I've had. And at the end of it, as an introvert who has a lot of self-doubt about these kinds of things, like I could feel like I really did right by my team. And the brand GPT, because it understood us and knew who we were, really helped connect all of that stuff into, our core mission and values and the authenticity that we have in our brand. And I would, a year ago, I would have never thought that like a brand GPT is what's going to save this for me. So that was amazing. And then the other big piece that I really saw it helping in a non-marketing way was with performance planning. We're in a division that's very serious about supporting our people with professional development opportunities. And of course, performance planning is connected to that. And so you shouldn't go into Chat GPT and just say give me performance goals for my person, but you can go in and say help me figure out what information I should give you and what I should be thinking about to generate really meaningful performance goals that are smart goals and all that kind of stuff. And it was interesting. It is so much work. You're not getting out of that work, but you're gaining a thought partner. Like it was telling me it wanted information like, key roles, key responsibilities for the role, strategic priorities aligned with our ODU global goals, which it knows because of our brand GPT. And then smaller scale things like what are the challenges or opportunities this specific person and role is facing, existing feedback from team and leadership, what available resources do we have for professional development, specific challenges with our workflows, all this stuff, which is a lot to provide and a lot to think through. But having something that guides you through that, an HR person doesn't have time to spend 3 hours with you thinking that stuff through. You're still doing your due diligence and you're going deep on it. But having that thought partner, like at the end of it, I have these great goals that are super meaningful and very dialed in for the person, but also our team dynamics and our larger department and divisional goals. And all of that stuff gets baked into having the brand undergirding how it's talking about it and how it's connecting that stuff in. So the brand GPT, if there is one thing if you have not yet built a brand GPT, if there is one thing where you want to start, like that is it for me. And then personas are another amazing thing that I know you've talked about a lot, and you have helped guide me with being able to implement all that stuff too. But brand GPTs, man, like that's like 10 out of 10, so valuable, so much of an impact for me and for our entire team.
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. And I love the performance goal planner. And it's interesting as they keep adding new features into ChatGPT. I see so many new opportunities. Like now they've added tasks in there. So now you can set up
Yeah,
ongoing tasks. So you could have a task that every week will, and you've got the memory built in. So
yeah,
every week it could go and look at, here are the things that you need to do this week, moving towards, the different deliverables you have, but also staying focused on the institutional strategic priorities and then your SMART goals as well.
yeah,
So, I mean, it could really become a guide towards helping you attain all your goals and reach all your objectives. And I think that's so critical. And especially as as humans, we're great at seeing what's in front of us, but we're not so great at seeing the gaps. And
Yes,
these
yes.
tools are so good at doing gap analysis, and it could look at your to-dos for the week and say, well, you're not doing anything towards this goal or supporting this gap, or next week you're going to have this huge project coming up, so you might want to schedule in some time on that. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like those of us who've been in our careers for, 15, 20 years or whatever, have some longevity, like, you've been in those situations where you've got this, often well intentions are, like, it's not like there's any bad intentions, but oh shoot, remember a year ago when we came up with these ideas, and now we actually have to answer for them in an HR document that's going to determine whether or not you're eligible for a raise. Like, like, everybody meant well and we're going to get through this, but like, if you using these tools to help you keep these things in mind, and it has such human impact, right? Like, people are feeling good about their jobs and what's happening, and in the midst of all the change that we're all dealing with and whatever's going on in our society, like, at least you know that your boss cares and is trying to support your goals in your job. I mean, it's a small simple thing, but it does give you some security and feel like you're valued and worth something, that people are considering these things. Who cares if an AI is helping you make sure that you don't lose sight of those things? Like, it's just bringing your good intentions, making sure that they don't get lost in the midst of all the chaos.
yeah, it's easy. It's so easy for us to become super tactical about all the tasks that we're doing day to day and really lose that strategic focus.
Yep.
Um, and now you've got me thinking about a performance GPT that would operate like a personal assistant with a bunch of tasks. I love it.
I love it. Yeah.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your insights and everything that you're doing over at ODU. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And thanks for all you do, Brian. I seriously, like I tell people, you're the person to follow between your books and your presentations and everything. So appreciate you being in higher ed.
Well, thank you very much, Dave. Dave's insights into ODU's AI journey offer a practical roadmap for institutions looking to integrate these tools effectively. His emphasis on starting with simple, time-saving applications before moving to more complex use cases provides a clear path forward. Dave's insights on team adoption, practical applications, and how AI is transforming leadership tasks are incredibly insightful. I love the way ODU is integrating AI across their digital marketing efforts, from AI that's integrated into their current creative tools to more personalized solutions like custom brand GPTs. And the way ODU has approached AI adoption with support from leadership and a focus on practical applications demonstrates how institutions can successfully navigate this change management project while maintaining their brand integrity and team engagement. Please reach out to me with unique ways that you're integrating AI into your professional and personal lives. And as always, blue skies and keep creating. Thank you for listening to another episode of AI for You. I hope you found at least one useful thing you can take away and start adding to your workflows and processes today. Remember, the key to making the most of AI is to keep experimenting, keep learning, and of course, keep creating. AI for You is a part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to become a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Artis Kadu, Day Kibbles, Shane Baglini, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.